In the shadowed realm of the wild plains, where survival is a brutal ballet, a solitary bison stands as a grotesque testament to nature's unforgiving cruelty. Its hide, once a rugged armor against the elements, now presents a ghastly canvas, marred by a festering wound that pulsates with life. An entire hive of bees has rooted itself within the gaping lesion. This is not some fragile creature succumbing quietly to death, but a living nightmare, where the buzzing of thousands of tiny wings echoes like a sinister symphony against the echo of desolation. The hive, an unnatural infestation, thrives in the rent flesh, where the raw skin oozes a mingling of pus and sap-like secretions, feeding the relentless swarm. The bees, normally architects of order and sweetness, have become parasites corroding the bison's vitality from within. The wound's edge is jagged, swollen with infection, a pulsing sore that invites flies and maggots, turning the site into a grotesque theater of decay. As the bees dart in and out, their bodies glinting like dark jewels against the sickly pink tissue, the bison's breath quickens, reality bending between pain and the primal urge to escape an invasion upon its living flesh. Bee infestation on large mammals, while rare, is a devastating phenomenon. Usually, bees prefer to build hives in trees or sheltered hollows, but occasionally, driven by scarcity or environmental disturbances, they resort to more disturbing venues. In the icy expanse of the Arctic, where the sun barely pierces the perpetual twilight, a solitary figure lumbers across the frozen landscape. This is not just any bear. It is a polar bear, a majestic creature that embodies the raw power and beauty of nature. But as we draw closer, the sight that greets us is not one of grace and strength. Instead, we are confronted with a horrific wound, a grotesque testament to the harsh realities of survival in this unforgiving environment. The bear's once pristine white fur is marred by a gruesome infestation of barnacles, their hard, calcified shells clinging to its skin like a sinister second layer of armor. This is not merely a wound. It is a battleground, a vivid illustration of nature's brutality and the often unseen consequences of life in the wild. Barnacles, those seemingly innocuous marine creatures, have found an unlikely host in this polar bear, typically associated with the hulls of ships or the rocky shores of coastal regions. These crustaceans have adapted to latch onto a variety of surfaces, including the skin of unsuspecting animals. In this case, the polar bear, perhaps weakened by the relentless pursuit of food or the effects of climate change, has become a prime target. The barnacles, with their sharp, serrated edges, burrow into the bear's flesh, creating deep, festering wounds that ooze with infection. Each barnacle is a tiny parasite, siphoning nutrients from the bear's body, compounding its suffering and weakening its already precarious state. As we observe this tragic scene, we cannot help but feel a sense of revulsion mixed with fascination. The barnacle infestation is not just a physical ailment. It is a symbol of the interconnectedness of life and the often brutal realities of the natural world. In the golden haze of the African savanna, life often presents vivid beauty, but sometimes it reveals a darker tale, a grotesque spectacle hidden behind the veneer of nature's splendor. Here lies the tragic story of a cheetah cub, once a promising flicker of wild vitality, now marred by a grotesque and nightmarish affliction, a yawning wound swollen with a buzzing hive of bees. This isn't just an injury, it is a living infestation, a gruesome meld of predator and parasite locked in a strange, brutal standoff. At first glance, the cub's fur, a soft blaze of rust and gold, is shattered by a festering sore where thousands of tiny, relentless bees have made their grim home. The wound, oozing and festooned with a frenzy of buzzing wings and darting stingers, paints a picture of suffering and decay that is both disturbing and fascinatingly primal. This harrowing scene invites us into the macabre theater of survival, where no creature escapes the raw, often cruel embrace of nature. The bee infestation on this young cheetah represents a complex and repellent biological anomaly. Bees, which are typically viewed as gentle architects of nature, here take on a sinister role as invaders, exploiting the vulnerability of the wounded cub. This hive is no ordinary bee colony buzzed with honey production. It is a parasitic stronghold feeding off the cub's exposed flesh and the sweet nectar of its blood and bodily fluids. The injured tissue acts as an unintentional invitation, an open gate allowing a swarm to settle deep within the wound, laying larvae and establishing a ragged fortress tinged with desperation and decay. The bee's presence causes relentless pain and inflammation, their stings multiplied by the sheer numbers of their tiny bodies. With every flap of wings, the cub's agony intensifies, its natural defenses overwhelmed by this tiny army, turning what was once a healing wound into a festering battleground. From the cub's perspective, the hive is an unyielding siege. The irritation and sting of thousands of tiny barb-tipped legs crawling, biting, and injecting venom create an unending torment. The bees, on the other hand, exploit this opportunity with an instinct honed by evolutionary pragmatism. The injured animal's warmth and fluids provide sustenance, while its immobility safeguards the hive's fragile young from external threats. This symbiosis is a grim irony of survival. The cub's suffering becomes the bee's lifeline, a deadly alliance replacing the more common predator-prey dynamics. In the icy expanse of the Arctic, where the sun barely pierces the perpetual twilight, a solitary figure lumbers across the frozen landscape. This is not just any bear. It is a polar bear, a majestic creature that embodies the raw power and beauty of nature. But as we draw closer, the sight that greets us is not one of grace and strength. Instead, we are confronted with a horrific wound, a grotesque testament to the harsh realities of survival in this unforgiving environment. The bear's once pristine white fur is marred by a gruesome infestation of barnacles, their hard calcified shells clinging to its skin like a macabre necklace of suffering. This is not merely a wound. It is a battleground, a vivid illustration of the struggle between life and the relentless forces of nature. Barnacles, those seemingly innocuous marine creatures, have found an unlikely host in this polar bear, typically associated with the hulls of ships or the rocky shores of coastal waters. These crustaceans have adapted to latch onto any surface they can find, including the thick fur and skin of our unfortunate bear. The barnacle infestation begins innocently enough, as a few larvae settle on the bear's skin, drawn by the warmth of its body. But what starts as a minor annoyance quickly escalates into a full-blown invasion. The barnacles, with their hard shells and sharp edges, begin to burrow into the bear's flesh, creating deep, festering wounds that ooze with infection. The bear, unable to reach these sensitive areas, suffers in silence, its body becoming a canvas for this grotesque display of nature's brutality. As we observe this tragic scene, we must confront the unsettling reality of the barnacle's life cycle. These creatures are not malicious. They are simply following their instinctual drive to survive. Once they attach themselves to a host, they begin to feed on the bear's skin and blood, drawing nutrients from their unwilling host. The bear, in turn, becomes weaker, its immune system struggling to fend off